In the vast, violent skies of World War II, there was a brutal math. For the Allied bomber crews flying deep into enemy territory, the question wasn't if they'd face death, but how close it would get. By 1943, the air war over Europe was hanging by a thread. American B-17 and B-24 bombers were being shot down in staggering numbers, their defensive guns proving to be no match for swarms of determined Luftwaffe fighters. The losses were catastrophic. They were unsustainable. On some missions, a crewman's odds of finishing as 2-5. Mission tour were less than 50/50ths. The entire strategy of daylight bombing, a cornerstone of the Allied plan to defeat Germany, was on the verge of total failure. This crisis didn't just need a solution. It demanded a new generation of aircraft, built not just to even the odds, but to dominate. From the drawing boards and factory floors of America, 3 incredible machines would emerge to answer that call. An elegant long-range killer, a brutish and unstoppable juggernaut, and a technological marvel that could reach across oceans to deliver the final, decisive blow. These are the stories of the 3 American planes that didn't just change the war, they conquered the sky. Mission 1. The P-51 Mustang, the long-range legend. The problem was simple, and it was deadly. Distance. Allied fighters like the British Spitfire and the American P-40 Warhawk were fantastic planes, but they were sprinters in a marathon. They could only escort the heavy bombers for a fraction of their journey into Germany, leaving the bomber streams defenseless for the most dangerous leg of the trip. The Luftwaffe knew this. They'd wait patiently until the little friends had to turn back for home, and then they would pounce. The crisis came to a head in October 1943, a month since the 8th Air Force would grimly call Black October. During one infamous raid on the ball-bearing plants at Schweinfurt, 60 B-17s and 600 airmen were lost in a single day. The losses were so devastating that long-range daylight missions had to be stopped. A solution had to be found, or the air war was lost. The answer came from a surprising place. The P-51 Mustang was originally designed for the British. Early models with their American-made Allison engines were promising, but they gasped for air at high altitudes. Then came a moment of genius, a match made in heaven that would create arguably the finest all-around piston engine fighter of the war. British engineers suggested fitting the sleek Mustang airframe with their own masterpiece, the Rolls-Royce Merlin engine. The secret weapon was the Merlin's 2-stage supercharger, which acted like a set of mechanical lungs, forcing air into the engine and allowing it to breathe in the thin atmosphere of the stratosphere. The Mustang was transformed. Suddenly, it wasn't just fast. It was a high-altitude thoroughbred. Outfitted with external drop tanks, its range was simply astonishing. It was like a world-class sprinter who could suddenly run a dozen marathons back-to-back. The P-51D could fly from England all the way to Berlin, hang around over the target, get into a fight, and still fly all the way back. The impact was immediate and decisive. When the Merlin-powered Mustang showed up in Europe in late 1943, the entire strategic balance of the air war shifted. The bombers weren't flying alone anymore. The P-51s became their guardian angels, their little friends, smashing German fighter formations before they could even get a sniff of the bombers. Luftwaffe commander Hermann Göring famously said, "When I saw Mustangs over Berlin, I knew the jig was up." The P-51 was more than a match for Germany's top fighters, like the FA-190 and Me-19, and could even take on the revolutionary Me-262 jet. By the war's end, P-51 pilots had claimed around 4,950 enemy aircraft in the air, the highest tally of any U.S. Army fighter. It had broken the back of the Luftwaffe, achieved total air superiority over Europe, and saved a strategic bombing campaign from disaster. Mission 2. The P-47 Thunderbolt, the flying tank while the graceful Mustang was winning dogfights in the stratosphere, a very different American fighter was owning the skies, closer to the ground. This plane wasn't known for its elegance. It was known for being a brute, a flying tank. It was the Republic P-47 Thunderbolt, better known by its nickname, the Jug. The problem the P-47 solved was one of sheer raw violence. The war demanded a fighter that could not only survive a chaotic dogfight, but also dive headfirst into a hail of ground fire, soak up terrifying punishment, and still get its pilot home. It needed to be less like a fencing foil and more like a sledgehammer. The Thunderbolt was essentially designed around its engine, the Pratt & Whitney R. 2800 Double Wasp, a colossal 1.8-cylinder radial engine pumping out over 2,000 horsepower. Its main weapons were 8.50 caliber machine guns, 4 in each wing, that could unleash a terrifying wall of lead. Fully loaded for a ground attack, a P-47 could weigh nearly 9 tons, making it one of the heaviest single-engine fighters of the war. That weight and size, all centered on that air-cooled radial engine, was the secret to its legendary toughness. Think of a liquid-cooled engine, like the Mustangs, as a high-performance race car. Incredibly powerful, but one stray shot to a coolant line and the whole system seizes. The P-47's engine was like a giant air-cooled chainsaw motor. You could blast parts of it away, and the brute would just keep roaring. Pilots came back to base with entire cylinders shot clean off, with wings and tails so full of holes they looked like Swiss cheese. That survivability gave pilots the confidence to press their attacks down low where the fighting was dirtiest. The Thunderbolt's impact was felt everywhere. Before the P-51 arrived in huge numbers, it was a fearsome high-altitude escort, claiming nearly 3,800 aerial victories. But its real calling was as a fighter-bomber. After D-Day, P-47 squadrons became the absolute scourge of the German army in France. They flew hundreds of thousands of missions, dropping over 130,000 tons of bombs and firing countless rockets. They destroyed thousands of tanks, trains, and trucks, strangling German supply lines and giving invaluable and terrifying close-air support to Allied soldiers on the ground. And 3. The B-29 Superfortress, the Pacific game-changer with the Mustang and Thunderbolt. Helping to win the war in Europe, American planners were facing a totally different problem in the Pacific, the tyranny of distance. The Japanese home islands were thousands of miles across a vast ocean. A seaborne invasion was projected to cost over 1 million Allied lives. They needed a new weapon, one that could throw a knockout punch from 1,000 miles away. That weapon was the Boeing B-29 Superfortress. It was the single most expensive weapons program of the entire war, with a final price tag of around $3 billion. To put that in perspective, that was a full $1 billion more than the Manhattan Project, which was creating the atomic bomb at the same time. This wasn't just a bigger bomber. It was a quantum leap in aviation technology. The B-29's innovations were stunning. It was the first bomber with fully pressurized crew cabins. This acted like a deep-sea submersible in reverse. It created a comfortable sea-level bubble for the crew in the thin, freezing, hostile environment above 30,000 feet. This high-altitude sanctuary didn't just protect the crew, it also cut down on fatigue during grueling 15-hour missions. It also had a revolutionary remote-controlled gun system. Gunners used computerized sights, almost like an advanced video game, to aim the plane's turrets with deadly precision, all without having to freeze inside an exposed blister canopy. Powered by 4 massive Wright R-3350 engines, the B-29 could carry up to 20,000 pounds of bombs over a range that finally put the heart of Japan within Allied reach. From newly captured islands in the Marianas like Tinian and Saipan, the B-29 campaign against Japan began in late 1944. Its impact was world-altering. The initial high-altitude precision bombing strategy soon shifted to devastating low-level incendiary raids. The firebombing of Tokyo on the night of March 9th, 1945, created a firestorm that became the single deadliest air raid of the entire war. These raids systematically destroyed Japan's industrial capacity and its will to continue the fight. And then came the B-29's final war-ending mission. On August 6, 1945, a B-29 named the Enola Gay dropped the first atomic bomb on Hiroshima. 3 days later, another B-29, Boxcar, delivered the second bomb to Nagasaki. The Superfortress became the delivery vehicle for the ultimate weapon, forcing Japan's surrender and making that costly land invasion unnecessary. It was the technological marvel that brought the Second World War to its definitive, terrible end. 3 planes, each designed to solve a unique and deadly problem. The P-51 Mustang, a thoroughbred that gave the Allies the reach they needed to finally win air supremacy. The P-47 Thunderbolt, a rugged brawler that could absorb unbelievable punishment to dominate the battlefield from above. And the B-29 Superfortress, a technological titan that bridged oceans and delivered the war's final blows. Together, they represent a pivotal moment when American industrial power and engineering genius came together to create machines that didn't just fight in the war. They fundamentally changed its outcome. They conquered the sky, and in doing so, helped save the world. If you found this piece of aviation history as fascinating as we do, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about the incredible machines that shaped our world. And let us know in the comments which of these 3 legendary aircraft impresses you the most. Thanks for watching.